Welcome to the Greenway Outdoors Podcast, your trusted source for outdoor information and entertainment. The Greenway Outdoors is also an internationally syndicated TV show and conservation advocate aimed at bringing millennials and Generation Z into the outdoors. Welcome to the Greenway Outdoors. The Greenway Outdoors Podcast is brought to you by Ram Trucks, built to serve. Motor Trend's Truck of the Year for the third year in a row. Bass Pro Shop and Cabela's. Your adventure starts here. And by Tracker Boats. Fish the best. Hello and welcome to episode 67 of the Greenway Outdoors Podcast. My name's Kyle Green.
I'm AJ.
I'm Jeff Hutchinson.
I'm Ryan.
And as you may have noticed, if you've done a lot of reading on our website, gone through our blogs, our recipes, they're all written by that voice, and you could probably tell that based on the writing and how poorly it was done.
It's also the same as all the voiceovers on the show.
No. Don't you turn it like that. No, he's not actually slow. So we just got back from Alaska, and that has been a dream trip for us.
I think you mean Alaska.
Why would I mean that?
Because that's how Sarah Palin says it.
Alaska. Oh, really?
Never knew that.
We saw someone up on top of a mountain looking at Russia. Oh. So that must have been where she was. That's why she wasn't able to tell us that. So we did
waving to the Kremlin.
That's absolutely right. So we landed in Anchorage, which was actually a nice airport.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah, there was some money in that.
Yeah, it was a nice airport.
Well, Isn't it their only big?
Yeah, they have lots of airports, but they're only real one.
Yeah. No, super.
Any lake is an airport.
Super nice.
There's also only like 200 people in the whole state, and they all funded that one airport.
Yeah, it was crazy. We actually met every single person in the state while we were there.
Okay, this is
biggest state in the union.
The rest of the things we'll say will be true. So
that is true.
Anyhow, my cousin William, he lives there. He's lived there his entire life. My cousin Heather as well. So going there and getting to spend time with them was really, really cool, and kind of getting to see. They would always come up to Michigan during the summers when I was a kid and hang out with me all summer long and stay with their dad, who is my uncle, and my aunt during that time. It was so cool. I just don't even know where to begin. You know, first of all, it was summer.
I'm sure you had to be there.
Yeah, you definitely had to be there. Otherwise, there's no point in even talking about it.
We're living.
But it was so beautiful there. The first thing right off the gate is we were there in July.
Yeah.
So we didn't have almost any nighttime from about 12:30, 1 a.m. until probably 3:30.
3 or 4.
There was their dark time.
Was it even like fully dark?
No. So my cousin lives in a just a normal community, like a normal neighborhood.
It's like suburbs.
Yeah, but they didn't have street lights. At least they weren't on. And I could look across the street and at the darkest time at 1 o'clock in the morning, look across the street and see plain as day someone walking around and stuff like that out in their front yard, whatever else. Like, it was never that dark. It was always still visible to some degree. It was just darker out. The sun wasn't high. I'd equate it to like just after sunset, where it's like, yeah, the sun's gone, but you can still see and the fireworks haven't started yet on 4th of July.
Yeah.
That would be it.
It's not bad.
All right.
Yeah, good description, right?
Yeah, it was good.
So that was a neat experience. That helped a lot with the crutch of filming. So every time we film, one of the things that we're always worried about is timing and things like, just being able to fit everything in during the day. We never had to worry about that. It could be 10:30 at night and it looked like, 5 p.m. still.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
Was it like disorienting, I would assume? It's like, why am I tired?
No,
you don't get tired.
No, you don't get tired.
That's the issue.
They
were the locals. They were explaining that in the summertime you have to be careful because it always feels like you're right on the edge of nighttime. So you'll just like wear yourself out completely, where you're just after a week of being like that, not really going to bed because it's still light out. You're just drained.
Best way I would explain it is, the feeling in the summer where it's like 8:30 and it's like, man, it's not bedtime yet, but it's starting to get dark. Your day's starting to wind down. It feels like that from 4:30 until 1 a.m. And I don't know how to describe it any better than that. Like, just never.
So weird.
It's never really time to go to bed. And like, we ate dinner at 10 o'clock at night, and we were having trouble finding a place that was open. And it was so weird to like try and find a place that's open when the sun is in the middle of the sky still. Like, it's nowhere near setting.
Like way up there. It's super sunny, beautiful day.
Was it weird? Like, how does the sky move there? Like the sun, like if it's just...
It's just
it
the sun's really slow.
Yeah?
Really slow. It
Yeah.
does its
Well, doesn't
thing.
it go and like touch and go right back or something?
Only in Fairbanks.
Fairbanks. Okay.
Yeah, it does like a U-turn up in the sky.
That's 4
They
hours
said that
north
you
of
could
where
see
we
it.
were at.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
Yeah. So I liked it though. I liked it
Yeah.
because, and I like he said, I was never tired. I think part of the reason we were never tired too is because we were on a 4-hour difference. So they're 4 hours behind where we normally are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like midnight feels like 8 o'clock and it's light out.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really disorienting from that perspective, but you're just never tired.
It's the other way, right?
Nope, I had it.
No,
Well, and on top of that, you're normally...
they're behind. So
Yeah, they're 4 hours
Midnight's
behind us. So when we were there, they're
midnight there is 4 a.m. here.
Right, and just like midnight there is our 8 p.m., just like I said.
Nope,
No.
put us behind.
No.
You're wrong. He's right. You're
Wait.
dumb.
I'm right.
No, if it's midnight and they're 4 hours behind
That
us.
would put us behind them. Yeah.
Jeez, how did I deal with that then?
And
I don't know.
You were determined.
Yeah.
You stuck with it too. Well, you're normally...
Thanks for AJ bailing me out, even though he knew I was wrong.
You're normally just
Well,
up
it is
for those
behind.
hours anyways. So
I
what
just
do you-
don't sleep, so there's
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah.
But
I think it was just such a big shift that
I still haven't even figured it out yet.
oh no.
But yeah,
I'm still lately on that.
That probably
sleep
almost
schedule.
counteracted any kind of jet lag you'd have.
what we
Not
did was
having to deal with dark when it shouldn't be.
the first night we did our best to stay awake as long as possible, so we
Yeah.
didn't go to bed till midnight, which would have been 4 a.m. our time.
Hmm.
And then by doing that, it accustomed us really fast.
Sure.
But since we've been back, I'm still a little screwed up. Yeah.
What else is crazy? We drove like, what was it, 3 hours to
Yeah,
our
just under 3.
film location from Anchorage,
Mm-hmm.
and I was looking on a map at our route we were
Oh,
taking,
yeah.
and from
Dumbest thing.
from the town we were in to Anchorage, I could see the whole trip, the whole 3-hour trip, and I started zooming out and zooming out and zooming out and zooming out, and I was like, this state is massive. We've seen
Insanity.
nothing. We've seen nothing of this entire state.
No. Bigger than Texas.
We were there a week and didn't see,
That's
Which is just baffling.
You superimpose Alaska into the middle of the continental United States. It's like,
That's
oh my,
Yeah.
wow,
That's a good point.
huge.
I'm glad we stole it. No, I'm just kidding.
And we looked it up, right? There's no highway that runs from all the way from the south all the way to the north, or all the way from the east all the way to the west.
I don't remember that.
Who would
Or I
build
didn't
that?
hear
Maybe I did that
Who
on my
would
own
build
time.
that for the 5 people that would drive the whole thing?
Not to
That's
mention,
true.
when would they have
But
built
there's
it?
cities.
Yeah.
There's like towns everywhere, but
Yeah.
you only get to them through plane or boat.
Good Lord.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
And the beauty of everything. And like there's whales there and there's
Eagles galore.
eagles yeah, bald eagles are as common as seagulls
And,
there.
and moose are like white-tailed deer here.
Yep.
Yeah,
True.
like we're driving down the road and there's a moose next to the road
And
and
they're huge.
yeah. We
And
never
we,
got to see
we didn't
a-
even see any impressive ones.
No.
But
no,
like,
we saw a 4-point and a bunch of females is what we saw.
yeah, which I mean, a moose is a moose. They're
Yeah.
big no matter what. Like that was
It was
impressive
as big,
in itself.
Yeah, it was as big as my 700-800 pound elk.
Yeah.
It was a female, so it's
Yeah.
like
Well, a lot of people are like, they think of a moose and they think, oh, well, it's bigger than a deer, until you stumble upon that TikTok where it's a moose and it runs into a car and it's like,
it like barely got
is
its
that
ankle
like
out.
a toy car
Yeah.
or what? Oh my God.
Yeah,
It's
like
huge.
it's like they're up to their knee,
Massive
at the
animals.
top
Like
of
a
it.
1,400-pound behemoth.
Yeah.
So while we were there, we went to the Kenai River and also what's the name of the other river?
Kasilov.
Kasilof. Thank you, AJ. I knew you'd know it. That's why I looked right at you and not Ryan. No, just kidding. Kasilof. So those two rivers, they have runs of different salmon and trout and things like that. At this point in time when we went, the Sockeye salmon run was going on. So what happens is the life of a Sockeye salmon is pretty interesting, and this is what we learned while we were there. The Sockeye salmon go through, first of all, there's commercial nets. So out in the ocean, commercial nets galore.
Mhm.
Pick up tons of sockeye salmon. That's why you get wild-caught sockeye salmon at the stores.
Mhm.
In addition to that, there's like sea lions everywhere, and they're total pricks to these sockeye salmon. They eat sockeye salmon galore. I mean,
I
they're
bet.
they're really, really tough on them. So they go through the commercial fishing nets, then they got to go through the sea lions. Then once they get through there and they start to get to the river, then you have the people that live in Alaska are allowed to dip net. Now what happens is if you picture a giant river, and I'm going to do what I always do because it makes a lot of sense to do it here.
Get you a piece of paper.
Yeah, but if you...
We need to get you one of those like
Dry erase
John,
board.
John Madden little
Oh,
commentating screens.
Okay, so...
Oh, a rainbow.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
easy. So
Drawbridge.
if you imagine this as a river bend, right? So this is the river bend right here. The water is flowing, let's say, or I guess it'd be flowing this way.
Our graphics guy is out this way.
So because the water is flowing this way, the current on the outside of this is going to be the strongest as it makes that turn.
Mm-hmm.
So up and along this edge here, the current is a lot weaker. So what the fish will do is as they're migrating, we're talking tens of thousands of fish pouring in per day migrating. After beating the initial thing, is they'll all take that inside track in order to dodge.
Just like NASCAR.
Yeah,
essentially.
they're taking the path of least resistance, and they'll all do it. So what you do is you find a spot in the part of the river they're migrating through at that time, around a bend on the inside of it, with the hopes that the fish will swim right by you. And we're talking right by you, right by shore, because they're tired, right? They're making this long journey. So once they get past the commercial nets and then they get past the sea lions, then
They thought they made it home free.
no, it ain't even close. So then the dip netters take place. Now the dip netters are people that live in Alaska are allowed to take a big old net out, and they walk out in the water and just put their net in, and because they're in that path, the fish are just going to swim right through it. And they scoop them up and they take them out. And I can't remember the exact number. It was like 25 or 30 fish
I think it was 30.
per year, just sockeye, that each individual resident
per year.
that each individual resident can take.
Okay.
So they're all taking their 30 at least and then fishing for them as well. So once they get past those dip netters, and when you see it, it's bonkers. There's like hundreds and hundreds of people on shore just going one right after the other, just scooping up fish. They're in and out, in and out. So they get their fish, and then after they do that, they then go to, and it's kind of cool too, when you do it, you have to immediately, so the dip netters, because Williams lives in Alaska, so he can do it. He said you have to clip a certain fin right off the gate as soon as you get it, and then you take them up on shore, clip that fin, and then put them in your pile. If you don't clip your fins, you get big trouble because the commercial stores and restaurants and stuff are not allowed to buy or sell the fish that have the clipped fin, so that people can't go out dip net and then sell it to them and not count it towards their 30 and so on and so forth. So kind of cool to keep dibs on that.
It's like $15 a pound if you're bringing in 30 fish. That's
I mean,
good money.
sockeye salmon, that red meat is wildly considered probably one of the top, if not the top, salmon meat you can have on the planet, especially there because they're getting them right out of the ocean. So so there's that. Then once they get past that, then they have these nets that go in the water, and it's to slow the flow of the salmon coming in so the whole load doesn't get dumped in at once.
okay.
It's to make it so it's harder for them to get in these
bottleneck.
Yeah, that's perfect. But those gill nets and stuff can be really damaging and hard on the fish. So like I got the perspective from locals that they really hate them. But I can also see the point of like all the fish went through in 2 or 3 days and you didn't spread it out, the amount of harvest that they're trying to accomplish wouldn't be met because everyone's only allowed this many a day and so on and so forth. So in order to spread that season out and accommodate more anglers, accommodate more people harvesting fish, make no mistake about it, these fish are there and they do this harvest run so that people can consume them. You want enough to get through, and they watch it like a hawk, by the way. When we were there, king salmon got shut down because not enough king salmon were in the river to hit the breeding numbers that they want to see. So they shut it down. They watch it like a hawk. And so once they get through the dip netters, they get through the sea lions, they get through all that.
Is the area where they're doing that bottleneck, is it like almost like a little lake? Like where would the fish go if they can't immediately
No,
get
it's
through?
it's like netting. It's hard for them to get through it. And then there's like counters and stuff like that too. So where if the fish swim in this one thing, they get added to this basket and count as a thing.
Yeah.
They've got tracking things in the river, so they count how many pings
but
go
if
by.
they're all coming through, I wonder where those fish that can't immediately get through go.
They just get stopped up right there. They've got one mission is to go forward, but it's almost like waiting in line.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so they get blocked out that way.
Huh.
So
Imagine netting there.
I'm sure there's laws on that.
yeah,
Oh,
it's
no
not far
question.
from there that they're dip netting though.
Yeah.
And I mean, you pretty much know where the fish are going to be.
What's interesting was you knew what fish were caught in nets too.
They're all marked up.
Like the ones that had made it past. There's like
Like
it
war
looks
wounds?
like a print of a net on the side of
It
them.
looks like
almost.
someone
Oh,
took a
really?
black ink of like the thing they put Coke bottles on, the things that you always see on the turtles when they're all like this in the ocean.
Yeah.
You know the what do they call it? Like the cans of
Oh
Coke
yeah, the
going up.
plastic can holder things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, so those, it looks like someone took black ink, put it on there, and then put it on the fish, and it stayed.
I wonder if that's like the fish that tried to get to the net couldn't get through, and then all the fish behind it are like people that
It's like getting
they're
pressed up
people
against
at Walmart.
Total
went
Nemo.
On,
Yeah,
Black
exactly.
Friday?
yeah, on Black Friday. All rushed. He's like, no.
So that was an interesting thing. Then when we're like going down shore, AJ's flying the drone, filming and stuff, and we're seeing like hundreds of fishermen along the shores. And we stayed right on the Kenai River. And every time I looked out in the backyard, there's like steps going down to the riverbank. We catch fish right there too. It's totally awesome. We totally didn't sleep in every day and only fish the Kasilof. Definitely didn't do that. But there was fishermen out there lined up on the shore like the Tippy Dam.
Yeah.
On the Kenai. So we always do the Tippy Dam in Michigan. It's always like packed out with people salmon and steelhead fishing. But anyhow,
Tippy Dam down there.
so, and that was the joke we made
It's
every morning.
hilarious.
It was beautiful though, waking up and opening your eyes and it's like 5 a.m. and it's already sunny as can be out and people are fishing. It was really cool. So after they make it through all that, then they have to make it through the sea of fishermen all the way there. And they're all taking the same route. So what the fishermen are doing is we used fly rods. And we used a big heavy weight, and then tied off of the weight is a bead, which is supposed to look like an egg, and then a hook just below that. So just a single gold hook. And what you were doing is you're allowing, so let's say you're using 8-foot rods, so you would let out 8 foot of line. So basically you're dealing with 16 foot of stuff, and the weight would sit right about where your handle is. Maybe you're reel, and I played with it. I got different opinions based on the depth and what you're working with, but and that's all you would have on there. It's just a bead, a hook, and a weight. And it was you don't cast like you're thinking with a fly rod.
Yeah.
You would literally, your goal is to slap the water hard, so the weight would hit the water, sink to the bottom. Now
like you sent me a video of AJ doing that, and I'm like,
he's
you're just gonna
Let him do
sit
that?
there and let him do that, and you're gonna record him doing it. You're not gonna correct him.
he was doing it correctly, and that's what's weird. You look like a psychopath.
Yeah.
And what's really funny is like everybody, and I will say this, everyone we talked to that wasn't using our tactic that we passed down the river, because me, I'm talkative Kyle, and there was
Everyone's his friend.
and a striking amount of young girls there. That's all I'm
Oh,
saying.
a weird
And
amount.
When I say young, I mean 18 to 28. I'm not being a weirdo, but there it was like, anyhow, you know what I'm saying.
They were there.
No, what are you saying?
So, so everyone that we talked to that wasn't using that tactic, we're like, oh, we got one today. Oh, we didn't really get that many. Oh, and I was talking to our guide, Mike, who is a great guy,
The best.
really cool dude. And I'm like, are they in a good spot? He's like, they're in a pretty good spot. They're in a bad spot. They're in a good spot. Kind of update me. But it didn't matter. If they weren't using our tactic, which it seemed like almost nobody was, they weren't catching fish. They were getting 1 or 2 a day.
Which is
I'm
insane
surprised.
because we were catching limits
Okay.
every day.
With that many
It was like
fishermen
nothing.
out there, you'd think they'd see, oh, look, they keep catching them.
No,
What are they
they-
doing?
Well, that's
they-
it. So
They're
we
doing this stupid
that
looking
was the
thing,
thing.
but
we had a drift boat, so we got so far from everyone that no one saw what we were really doing.
okay.
So anyhow, we take that weight and you slap the water.
Until we share it today.
Yeah, well, I hope, man. Do something while you're out there. So the current is going this way, right? So the current is going this way. So I guess no, it was going the other way. The fish are coming this way. The current
Oh,
is
you're
going
right.
that way. Current's going that way.
They're going upstream.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fish are coming from there. So when you cast at 12 o'clock, you allow your line, the weight sinks right away to the bottom.
Mhm.
So now you have a straight line of clear fluorocarbon line to your weight, and then the hook is just after that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what you do then is you cast at 12 o'clock and you allow the current. You don't cast. You just go that 8 foot of line that you have on there. That's all you're giving it plus whatever the lure is. So you're just fishing like this little 8 square foot of water. That's it. That's it. It's like the littlest thing. It feels silly Huge river, you're just fishing this little itty bitty spot, right? So you cast, you allow the weight to go down the stream. Now the idea is, it's called flossing. The fish, and it's legal, by the way. Yeah. It's like what you do when you're drying off with a towel in the bathroom. So similar. So the fish swims upstream. The line goes across the front of the fish's face, okay? And he bites the bead, hypothetically. I'll be honest, I don't know that any of them ever bought the bead, but they're supposed to bite the bead because they think it's an egg, and they're like, oh, I don't want the competition, so I'll eat the other one. They bite the bead, and when that happens, it's as if it feels like a snag. You're 100% certain that there's no way it's a fish. You're snagged in the bottom. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. No question. Set the hook then, because that's a fish, okay? A snag feels different in this scenario. So it's the weirdest thing, is it not? I mean, AJ and Ryan both had the experience. So cast, let it float down. Around 4 o'clock, you would do a quick hook set, lift it out of the water, and slap it back down. So you're literally going.
True.
It's very mind-numbing.
100%
How's
true.
the water? Can you see?
Okay,
You
so
see it
the
happen?
water is
perfect.
It's glacier water, so it picks up a lot of minerals as the glacier melts and goes down. So what you're seeing is almost like the most beautiful turquoise blue, and we'll show you some clips of it. But this most beautiful turquoise blue, like toothpaste blue, or it's like that blue where people could argue it's green. It just depends on how you're
aquamarine.
And that water is just gorgeous. You can kind of see in a little ways, but not super clear. So the underwater cameras actually did decent seeing the fish, but you got it, like, you can only see a little bit, and it drops off pretty quick.
It's probably like 2 foot of clarity.
You're not seeing, maybe less. I'd say 1.
So you're not seeing it happen.
No. You're not seeing it happen, and that's what's so mind-boggling about the whole thing. So when he explained it to me, I'm like, so all I'm fishing is this little piece of water in this massive river. I couldn't throw a rock across it if my life depended on it.
No.
And I'm only fishing 8 square foot right in front of this bank. He's like, yeah, that's what you do. So I cast once, I go through it, and he's like, do a little bit more of a snap at the end to get the weight to
And
sink.
don't move because there's bears.
There.
So I do the second cast, hook, feel a fish, and I'm like, I'm snagged. That's a fish. So you get snagged, and then all of a sudden you feel and you're like, oh man. Now the cool thing is you're on a fly rod, so you know the whole drag system's weird. The fish immediately start running. So your goal is to. I found my best luck is if I turned it outward. You always want your line down to the water because you don't want the fish to come out of water because they'll spit the hook every time. So you keep your rod down, but don't let the tip face them. You know, you're kind of pulling it away. So you've got to bend like this, and I would turn it towards the water and fight them to get the hook set, get the fish turned around. Then I would slowly back up onto shore a little bit until I got the angle different. Then I'd switch it towards facing it toward shore, and then I'd try and muscle them into shore.
This whole time, are you still fighting in that 8 feet of water, or now he's running?
Oh,
and
he's
doing
gone.
whatever?
He's gone. He's 30 feet from you now.
Oh, okay.
He bites it, and then he wah.
Yeah, okay.
Wah. No, so we made the joke a lot. So he just takes off, and if you let him get in the current, he's gone. You won't.
Yeah.
You're not getting him back. So you got to try and keep him away from that. But then there's also logs and stuff around shore. So if you can find one of those bends where you can kind of get out on gravel, so you're like farther out in the water. And it was funny because I like go up to my knees. He's like, "You're too far out. You're where the fish are. You need to come back to your ankle deep." So they're right in front of you, and it's so weird because like you can't see, and it's hard to believe that a fish is there. Like,
And then you're not spooking them by slapping the water like that.
no,
No.
they're headed upriver and they don't care. He said to me, he goes, "If you could turn the water clear and see the fish, you would be absolutely shocked that you didn't get a fish every cast. If you could see how many are going by you right now." I was like, that is just mind-boggling.
Get the underwater camera. Let's go.
Well, we did, and it's like you go in, but you put the camera in, and that pushes them out, so they stay away from that 1 foot mark, so you can't see them. So it's like you're not gonna see the
You
fish
almost
until
have
they.
to leave it and hope that they.
The other thing is like try new spots, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, well, if we don't get anything in an hour, we'll move, and it's like you're only fishing 8 square feet, so it's like really hard to like justify an hour. Like when you're casting in a lake, like you're trying in any spot, you're casting a lot and trying different spots. Here it's like
Doesn't matter.
That's
if you
your-
move. They're either there or they're not.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they might come through later. And then when one person hooked up, it seemed like more people, everyone at the same time was like, "Oh man, here it goes," you know.
Yeah, he said they ran in schools, so
Yeah.
when they were coming, it's on.
Yeah.
I was able to get it on my phone, the footage of reeling one in.
Yeah,
Oh,
which
that
was
was
funny
awesome.
because he did like first person shooter. It rained a lot when we were there, so there was times where we couldn't get the good cameras out. We have waterproof casings and everything like that, but when it's just pouring,
Nonstop.
and I mean pouring nonstop for hours, there's like not much you can do other than fish, which is cool because AJ gets his first fish ever in Alaska on a fly rod, a giant coho salmon in the middle of Alaska. That's his first fishing experience because he's always filming. So that was pretty cool.
I would say if our spot was a casino table, we had the hottest table in
Yeah.
the whole river.
Yeah.
Only there weren't people waiting in line behind you.
No
Well,
one
that's
was
the
there.
thing. Where we fished, we never saw a soul.
Nope.
We never saw a soul.
10 hours a day.
What?
Yeah, we were out there 10 hours a day for 3 days, and we
That's
never
so
saw
weird.
a person.
Because if you're describing it like Tippy Dam, no matter where you go, it's just,
Well, that's
People would stack up in other places for
Yeah.
some reason.
that was the Kenai. People would stack up where they could get access. So we had
Oh,
we had
okay.
one of those float boats that look like those
Yeah.
old Indian boat thing, like just real cool.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to describe them. They're
so
just
it's
Real
like-
curved, like a U.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like trout fishing. You're going further than other people are willing to go, and you get rewarded with fish.
Yeah, it was really nuts though. So there's 2 boat ramps. I'm sure there's a million, but there's 2. So there's a service there on the Kasilof where we parked at the boat ramp. So we parked our ram there, and we pulled the boat with our ram. And what we do is we park it there, leave the keys inside it, and $35. And there was a service that wouldn't steal your truck. They would come. It was a bunch of a young girl started it. A bunch of young girls would come and pick up your car, drive it all the way down to the boat launch down the river, so you could float down the river, try as many spots as you want, and then you would just end up 3-4 miles down the river and get out, and your truck would be there waiting for you. And that was like and
It was nice.
They were busy. They said they did about 100 cars a day
Wow.
and you just tell them which one you wanted at, obviously.
Yeah.
Really neat. So we did that.
Interesting.
So that gave us a lot of freedom to try a lot of different spots. But like I said, we never saw a soul where we were. And that was neat because you're in Alaska. There's bald eagles everywhere. It's the most
Wilderness.
gorgeous scenery you've ever seen in your life. You're in the middle of nowhere. You're on a gravel, and you're just catching coho salmon like sockeye salmon like your life
It's
is.
Sockeye.
Yeah.
We did try one spot where there were other people, and that turned into a whole event.
Yeah.
So we didn't do well there. We ended up going back to our original spot.
And by not doing well, I think we got 7 there
Yeah, which was still better than
in
the
a
other
couple
group.
hours. Yeah.
But so
we weren't satisfied with that.
Yeah, so we ended up going to another spot, but we wanted to try to get some shots before we left. So another guide was there that had a jet boat. Said that he would take AJ and I out into the river to try to get a few shots of different things. And so
And we could film our boat from the outside perspective without flying the drone in the rain.
yeah. So he has this jet boat. It's up against the bank where he's got like his kids and another family and whatever. They're doing their thing.
I know what story you're telling. I was like, where's he going with this?
Is
Now I
this
remember.
like a Jacob Bartinsky jet boat?
No.
No.
Like a-
No, this is a duck boat.
Oh, okay.
This is a center council duck boat.
Yeah. So it's up against the inside bank, and me and AJ get on. We're like, we're ready to go. He's like, cool. So he starts up the engine, and to get into the current and where he's at, he just like was gonna full throttle it right into it.
Okay.
But the way,
I heard
Just
this
park
from a
it.
distance, by the way.
yeah, they're like 100 yards away, like through the woods, far away, and. So he just like ramps that thing up, and it starts spraying water everywhere.
And mud.
Yeah, everything. Just
gravel,
it's
mud,
up against the bank.
Water.
So you just hear this like ear-piercing, blood-curdling scream, and I'm like, oh no! Turn around. This guy drenched his kids, just drenched them.
hard.
Water
though.
bombed them.
Hard though.
Like it was as if you threw them in the river and just pulled them right out,
Oh.
and they're
or
just
sprayed
they're
him with a
just-
fire hose.
ruined
you
their
know?
But not even water though, like gravel and mud.
Yeah.
and-
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It hurt.
Oh.
It hurt too. I'm sure.
Oh.
And I
Yeah.
heard like a kid. I'm like, AJ and Ryan are over there, and I hear shrieking. I'm like, come on, guys, what did they do? I'm like, what happened?
The guy's just like, sorry, buddy, and just
And
takes
we just
off.
take off. Kids
Yeah.
are screaming.
AJ goes, I feel nothing.
That was great.
The mom was all mad.
Wait, was this
Well, that's bound
that
to happen.
guy's kids or just a random?
Just
group
an our guy. It was different from our guide, but they knew each other. Everyone there
Oh,
seems to know.
okay.
But it was random
Okay.
still.
Yeah, it's still
Oh,
random.
Love it.
That's a shame.
Yeah. And he's like, sorry, buddy. And he's on
And
his
then
way.
just took off.
Did you get it on camera?
No, I
No.
wish we did.
They were getting in the boat.
I couldn't stop laughing.
Footage is just.
Yeah, it was actually funny because we could see him from the other boat, and I had heard the kids scream, but I didn't know what happened still, and I'm just in the other boat, and AJ's yelling at me, act natural, and I'm like, why are they laughing? What am I doing? Like, I thought you guys were, I literally thought they were making fun of me.
Yeah.
I'm like, what jerks?
When kids scream, there's no good way to decipher whether something horrible has happened or someone's tickling me. There's no like,
That's true.
you know,
Th-
it
this-
was an okay scream. Like,
This scream was different.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah, it
this.
was- Yeah.
And they didn't see it coming. Too.
No.
They just got
That's the best.
They
the
like
last
sitting
thing.
like in their coloring book, just like enjoying their day, and then we turn around, they're
Yes,
soaked
I mean,
and crying.
Probably equivalent of a fire hose just being blasted right
Yeah.
at someone.
That was like your dad up north.
Yeah, that
Where-
my
where-
Uncle Jim got my dad one time telling me.
North, and he's docked. He's like, okay, well, I'm gonna turn around or whatever, and he goes to start leaving the dock, and instead of going out straight, the boat starts turning, and we're in between two docks, so you can't. There isn't enough room to like fully turn, so he's trying to finagle it. He ends up getting back, and now he's going this way, and he's like, you know what? I'm just gonna gun it. He guns
I
it,
see.
and the water.
The water's stupid shallow there.
And Mr. Green had just come down. He had just finished showering.
So he's going to help him dock. Walks out.
He comes out to be helpful and gets just destroyed with water. Immediately turns around.
Yeah,
That
my
was
dad
those
just
kids, for
he just
sure.
stopped, turned around, and walked inside. And it wasn't just lake water. It was mostly muck.
Yeah.
That would be because it was too shallow for that motor. That's why it happened.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Love that. Funny. So anyhow, the sockeye salmon's journey. So they're going through the seals, they're going through the sea lions, they're going through the gill nets, they're going through the fishing nets, the dip nets, the commercial fishermen, all that, all those rivers of all those different people fishing, all the way to end up in your 8 square foot spot that you're fishing. And we caught them like crazy. One of the things I noticed too is because the way that the line goes and the fish is coming like this, you only ever, if you hook them correctly, because you got to hook them in the mouth still, you'd only ever get them in the right side of the mouth. And at first I was like, well, all of these are in the right side of the mouth. And then I was like, oh, it has to be. Because
'Cause
think
they're
about it. Yeah,
all-
that's the only way it would. That's the only way it would do it properly. Because if you snag them, you still got to let them go, even given the situation. So,
Sure.
extremely cool experience. The rain was a bit much. How'd you feel, AJ, as far as like your first fish? Like, what did you think of the experience? That type of fishing that way.
It was the most probably relaxed, perfect environment anyone could ever fish in my opinion. I mean, if I weren't filming, I would just be sitting there on a chair doing that cast that way and just do it for the whole day until I limited out.
Were you surprised by the fight? Because it was a big fight.
I don't know.
You don't have a
I
comparison.
just dragged it to shore
Yeah.
mostly. So it was fun though, for
Yeah.
sure.
That's an interesting perspective because AJ has experience to just about every kind of fishing,
But doesn't fish.
but doesn't fish.
Right,
This is his first fish.
I would go back there and spend the weekend
Just
any day.
fishing for sure, too.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah. What about you, Ray?
As far as what part?
Like, what do you think? You've obviously fished a lot, but
Yeah.
where would you rank that in your fishing
As far as the
experiences?
fights,
The fights and the experience.
right. As far as the fights go, they were pretty entertaining. Like, I would compare it like a good Michigan bass. Like, I would compare it to that.
Yeah.
Like, as far as how entertaining the fight is, seeing them jump occasionally and doing all that fun stuff. The experience of just being there and even if we didn't catch anything, it still would have been amazing.
To legitimately get 90 fish in 3 days. That
Yeah.
was our limit, and we got it.
I
Yeah.
mean, we were when we were floating down the middle of the boat or the river. I took my water bottle and just scooped up some water from the river, and it was crystal clear, and it tasted fabulous.
You tried it?
Oh yeah,
Nice.
it was so. I brought some back home with me, and I'm like, I can't keep this. So I just drank more of it. It was great. 10
Unrelated,
days
he's
later.
been super sick the whole time since.
It was
It's glacier
awesome
water. I
water.
mean,
It
if
was
you
so
got to
good.
do that in some water, that's
right out of the
Yeah,
river. Drink
right
it.
out of the tap.
Yep.
So, one thing I will say in conclusion of my Alaska stuff, because this is going to be a full episode, 2 things actually. One, sockeye salmon. So when they go through all of that and they survive all that, and it's so weird to think that they end up, you catching them unless they get all the way down to mate, which obviously they as I mentioned, they guard that pretty ferociously. Getting the salmon and seeing that color meat was mind-boggling.
Mhm.
It is the reddest, most beautiful meat ever. Now, a lot of the fish we caught still had sea lice on them, which is like a little parasitic thing that's on their skin. No big deal. It doesn't get into the meat or anything like that. And that's the first thing I said. I was like, oh, do we got to throw those ones back? He goes, no, that's a good sign. It means they're fresh out of the ocean. The more fresh they are out of the ocean, the redder and the higher the quality of the meat. As they do the migration, their body turns from silver to red, and their meat turns from red to white. So the redder the meat and the fresher they are and the more sea lice they have, the better tasting the meat's going to be. And luckily, we got a freezer chock full of the other stuff. Now, it rained a ton while we were there. One of the things I want to note is that it seemed to bother no one but us. We went to a restaurant, and we met up with, it was my cousin William, Mike, and then a couple of my friend William's friends. So it's raining outside, like decent, not sprinkling, like a decent rain. And everyone had just showered and stuff, and we're in normal clothes. And we're waiting at a restaurant. We're waiting for a table because nothing's open because it's 10:30 at night, and this is the only place that was open. So we're waiting for our table. The three of us are waiting under an awning like human beings. Everyone else is in the parking lot getting rained on, talking as if they're not getting rained on.
Like a dog who doesn't care, having the time of its life.
And they're just out there, and it's like nothing to them. And they come in, they're all soaked, and they just sit down, and it's like they're just so used to being wet from getting rained on that it doesn't even faze them.
It was kind of frustrating.
You'll either dry in an hour or go
Why
back
you like
outside
this?
anyway, so who cares?
Why are you doing this to yourself? It doesn't have to be this way.
I'm uncomfortable looking at you.
Exactly.
We did have the best guide ever.
Yeah, Mike was awesome.
He was
And
great.
that's saying something.
Yeah.
If there's a
Guides
problem
can
with
be
the
tough.
guide, AJ's the first to like, I didn't like him.
Yeah.
He was
The other thing is, like, we needed a guide. We needed to know what rivers to go to. We needed to know. We don't normally work with guides, but having the opportunity to have someone who's like, listen, this is the tactic that works. These are the rivers that you go to. I would feel completely comfortable going there and going with him again, even though I know what to do now. Yeah. I know where to go. I know what boat you need. I know how to fish for him. I know what to look for. But going with him, it was like a better experience than not.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, and it sounds like if
awesome.
you just went on your own, you go and do what the other people are doing because you assume it works, and then you would have had a bad time.
Yep.
Well, he's like a friend. If you were going out, you'd be like, "Hey, call Mike, see if he can go."
Yeah.
Like that's the type of person he is.
It was fun to hang out with and work with.
Nice.
The Greenway Outdoors is brought to you by Ram Trucks, built to serve. Motor Trend's Truck of the Year for the third year in a row. And by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Your adventure starts here.
Trust isn't built in a day. It's built over time. The early hours and the late nights. It's built by doing the work and pushing the limits every day. Because the promises we make are the promises we were built to keep.
If you'd like to help support the Greenway Outdoors, please like and comment on this podcast and subscribe to all of our channels.
Welcome back to episode 67 of the Greenway Outdoors podcast. Changing topics a little bit, something I wanted to talk about because I found this super fascinating. So have you ever heard of the blue belly lizard or the western fence lizard?
I think I have.
All of them.
Yeah, well,
There's a
if
brand
you
of
are...
sunscreen that's blue.
Oh wait, they
lizard.
do something.
Don't take this from me. I did a
belly
lot of
lizard.
research.
Sorry.
This is a thing.
I think I know.
Okay. So,
No,
if you're
you
from...
don't.
Can I guess?
Nope.
Please?
Nope.
Why?
If you are
Right
from
now.
California, let me do this. If you are from California, you probably have heard them or at least seen them everywhere. So the little lizards that are probably in your backyard, they likely have a blue belly, are all over the place. Now, here's the thing. Those lizards are everywhere. They're very common, and there's a ton of them. And they're the most common carrier in that area of ticks. Ticks love them. They snack on them like their life depends on it.
I knew it.
Yeah, you knew it, but you're going to let me do it.
I know
'cause
it.
I spent a lot of time. So, ticks Lyme disease. Okay, so let me break this down for you. There's a ton of them there, and there's ticks all over them. Okay, the ticks love them. They're one of the main hosts, especially for young ticks that are there. Now, here's the thing. With this many lizards and that many ticks, there's almost no human cases of Lyme disease in California.
Oh.
So, first of all, let's
A
start
lot
out
of
with
people.
let's start out with what is Lyme disease. So it's an inflammatory disease that starts out as a rash, headache, fever, and chills. Then later, it could possibly turn into like arthritis symptoms and neurological and cardiac disorders. It's transmitted by ticks who pick up that bacteria from other hosts and then carry it on and then bite a human and then give it to them.
Mm.
So what the scientists were noticing is that it seemed like, even though these lizards are the main host of everything, or they often are the host of it, they were unable to give that host, the lizard, Lyme disease in their testing. So it was like they couldn't get him to have Lyme disease. And the reason why they tried to was because when they would actually pick the ticks off of those lizards to test them, they never found any ticks that had Lyme disease that were attached to the lizard. So they were like confused, like, why is this? Now, normally Lyme disease is in the younger ticks in general in California, and it seemed like the older ones weren't having it. So either the older ticks were getting rid of it just on their own somehow, or something about biting the lizard was changing that. So what they did was they did some big tests on them to try and figure out what was going on. Now, the professor who actually discovered the Lyme disease in the ticks in California was the one that kind of led this entire thing, because he was like, okay, I found Lyme disease in ticks, but yet they're never on this lizard, so what's going on here, and why are there no human cases? So he ran a study, and in that study he found that a protein in the immune system in the blood of the lizard was actually not only curing any Lyme disease or a bacteria, killing any bacteria that came into the lizard,
Really?
it was curing it in the tick too, because the blood would go into the tick and cure it.
Oh,
So
transfusion.
yes. So that was super interesting to him. He's like, okay, we're solving it. So then they were like, okay, well, number one question is like, can we cure Lyme disease then for human beings? But they don't think they'll be able to. So it's a complex thing. Basically, it's not as simple as like grab that protein, throw it in a human, and you're good to go. The
You might
entire
be able to start regrowing limbs. That'd be cool.
the entire
One day.
the entire, I guess it wouldn't be the right word, but you could say like ecosystem of the lizard's body, that entire contraption, his entire immune system, the complex systems inside the lizard, it's like the perfect scenario for doing this. And that we couldn't just take it from humans and do it. But the tick ingesting the blood in the right circumstance is picking it up perfectly, that it's curing the tick right out of the blood. So that is why. So what they did was they said, okay, let's see if this will change if we got rid of an area. So they found an area and got rid of all of the blue-bellied lizards. They pulled them all out of there.
You just moved them?
They moved, yeah, I'm sure. So maybe actually, I don't know.
To the farm?
To
So-
the farm.
Some of them, Farmer Brown. No, I have no idea what they did with the ones they moved. They got rid of them in an area to see, okay, if you get rid of all the blue-bellied lizards, then what would happen? Would the ticks find other hosts, and then Lyme disease would pick back up and more humans would get it? Or would it just, what would happen? So they do that test. When they did it and they pulled out the blue-bellied lizards, the ticks, instead of just finding other hosts and picking up Lyme disease, just seemed to have less success finding hosts, and they just kind of didn't finish their life cycle because they didn't
just adapted to eating
the lizards.
bluebellies.
Yeah, so they really needed the lizards to do it. Now, there is another lizard there that has a similar, I forgot the name of it, but it has a similar characteristic, but it's super well camouflaged, very hard to find, more rare.
Camel-bellied lizard.
No, it's not. But they have trouble. The scientists weren't able to round up enough of them because they're so hard to get in order to see if the ticks switched to them then as well, because I couldn't find enough study to know that. But it seems as though the ticks just don't find other hosts in that area if they don't have the bluebellies. So the bluebellies are kind of like a double-edged sword then. Because they're there, there's a lot more ticks that are making it. But those ticks probably won't have Lyme disease if they interact with the bluebelly. So you're welcome. Yeah, I
Wow.
thought so. Do you have any follow-up questions for my awesome research? Because I took a
Can
few
I-
hours.
I already knew about it, so I don't have it.
You didn't know.
It would have been so great if at the beginning of his story you just blurted out, "They cure Lyme disease."
Well, what started it was Ryan sent me an article about it, and then I just did a bunch of research, and part of the article that he sent me was actually incorrect based on what I read. But
Misinformation.
I didn't write the article.
whatever. Coming from the guy that eats chipmunks, moving on. No, just kidding.
You do his.
Yeah. So there's this freak, right?
Yep.
He lives in the woods, right? And he eats chipmunks, right?
I don't live like in the woods. I live in a nice secluded house. So I'm coming home from work, and my driveway's like what, 100, 150 feet long.
I've been to your
something
house
like
3 times.
that. And you don't know how long my driveway is. You drove up it and drove down it 3 times, so you should know how long it is.
It's dark twice.
And I'm just driving blind. I got no idea how far
I
I'm going.
drive without headlights, so
There's nothing I can do at that point.
So coming home, there's a big line of pine trees on this side, and I see a hole. I'm like, that's weird. That's a new hole. I haven't seen it before. But, whatever. It's something little done, whatever. I come home the next day, and there's 2.
Sorry.
Oh, great.
All right. It's starting to seem like a problem.
Maybe I missed the first one for a little bit, but now there's 2. I was looking for them. And then, like a week later, there's like 8 of them. I'm like, okay, there's something wrong here. So I call the DNR. I'm like, what could this be?
God, can you imagine fielding that phone call as a
Can
biologist?
Can I, like...
Go to school for like 6 years and you get a call from this guy.
Technically, they're
about holes
causing
in his yard.
damage. Can I... Off-season, what else are they going to do?
Aren't they? What are the seasons on chipmunks? Is it
There
the
isn't-
September?
It's whenever.
Okay.
They're open season all year round.
Okay.
But
But you didn't know it was chipmunks at
Yeah.
this point.
So I called. They said, well, it could be chipmunks. I don't. And this has been a little bit ago, so I don't remember what the other things they said. But they said a couple different things. So I said, I'm gonna set out a trap. Is it okay? Like, yeah, as long as it's a live trap, won't kill them. You have to check it once every 24 hours. All the rules that come with trapping. So I set out this little. It's like a quarter-size live trap. It's adorable. So I set it out there, and I come home the next day, and there's a chipmunk in it. I'm like, oh, okay, so it's chipmunk, but I'm gonna have to trap a lot because there's
8 holes.
probably more
there's
than
12
one
holes.
in each
Yeah.
hole, and so I call the DNR back. I go, I caught it, and it's a chipmunk. Has anyone ever asked about anything about eating chipmunk?
They go, okay,
Because
guy.
we
Yeah, like,
we always
He goes, who is this? My ex-wife. No, just kidding.
because everything we go for, I
That's
always like to
awesome.
you don't want to waste it. You
Yeah.
eat it. Now you could just let them go, but I thought well,
He's a rat.
I've
yeah.
had
Frog
squirrel.
legs.
I like squirrel, so they can't be that different. So I call the DNR. The lady goes, well, no one's ever asked before.
But help yourself, dirtbag.
I
No, just kidding.
guess, I guess you know what? I could connect you with disease and
Oh.
Yeah, just to
whatever,
make sure you're not
just to talk to them. Like,
There's
okay,
half
whatever.
your day.
Like,
So
I'm
they-
pretty sure that's how AIDS was contracted. But yeah, go ahead.
So they transfer me, and I go, hey, has anyone ever talked to you about eating chipmunk? And same thing. Well, no one's ever asked. Before, but they carry all the same basic diseases that squirrel do, and none of them are really transmissible to people as long as you're, cleaning them properly and not eating like the guts
Brains.
or the
Right.
brains or anything like that. So
You don't let it go. You're like, well, how do I clean it?
Yep.
He's like, I said I don't know.
what
Let it
about the
go.
brains? What
Yeah.
does it taste like? No one's
Guy.
So I said, okay, well, I got, whatever. I'm going to try it. And I took it. I cleaned it. It was adorable. I cleaned it in probably about maybe 45 seconds. It was super easy to clean.
Okay.
I
What
put
part
it in,
of it was
What
adorable?
cinches?
Yeah.
it's just it's a little squirrel.
What's the process of cleaning it?
The exact same as a squirrel, only it takes like a quarter of the time.
How's
You-
the fur
you-
fur on the meat problem that we deal with squirrels?
Like you have to imagine picking it off, except you don't necessarily have to pick as much off, and it's also only this big, so you only have so much to look at to pick off.
Okay.
It was great.
How'd you kill it?
I would prefer not to say.
You
It's
clubbed
the
it.
most humane way, but we'll get cranky comments about it.
Okay. So he died of
I
natural
did
causes.
it humanely in the fastest way you possibly can.
As long as you don't tell me you did the put it in a trash can and fill it with water thing.
No.
I'm
I
okay.
hate
No,
that.
I know.
I hate that.
I hate people that think that that's okay.
I did it legally and humanely,
Okay.
but people who aren't well versed won't understand and they'll be cranky about it.
Got it.
So we're gonna skip it. So I took it. You cut around like a belt, and then just take off the shirt and pants. It just comes off, and then you're left with a little teeny tiny little squirrel.
You gotta cut off the feetsies.
Yep.
In the head.
You cut off the feetsies in the head. You gut it. again, the entire process took 30, 45 seconds.
Okay.
Which is saying something for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've cleaned a lot of squirrels.
Means 8 seconds for other people.
So,
You slow moving son.
so I take the chipmunk and I put it in the fridge and I aged it for a day, just because whatever.
Would you age it in milk?
No, I just dry aged it.
Racked
Oh.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Put it on a rack, let it sit.
Gotta be
for a day.
careful. You don't want that meat to crust up on the outside on that thing.
That's all of it.
Yeah.
Then I took it and then I marinated it in Greek dressing for 8 hours, and then I put it on the grill.
Did your girlfriend at any point like open the fridge? You'd be like, "Hey,
To store it, it keeps going.
I told you no dog treats in the
I,
fridge."
So I put it on the grill and I compared it to, you ever seen the movie Shrek?
Oh yeah.
Where he's got those rats on that stick over the campfire.
Yeah.
I skewered it and put it on the grill
Wow.
and cooked it, and it was delicious.
Really?
It was so good.
I wonder what the health facts are on it.
I
Yeah.
caught another one the following day and did the same thing.
Oh my gosh.
This guy's a chipmunk
So-
eater.
Selling to the Asian buffet.
I can see your
sensed-
two front teeth growing already.
So I took the second one and we had something going on, so I had to leave. So I was like, well, I caught this. I don't know what I don't want.
I can eat it raw.
I don't
No,
wanna-
he
I don't wanna
progressively
just-
gets worse.
No, I did the same thing, but I didn't want to leave it, so I killed it and then put it in a jar and put it in the fridge.
Why?
And
A
then
jar.
and then I was gone,
Sick freak.
and then my girlfriend comes home, opens up the fridge, and goes,
What the hell?
texts me and goes, what is this in the fridge?
It's for the science
It's-
class.
is a chipmunk in a jar.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
That's a
But
tough one
hon-
to explain.
But
Yeah,
honestly,
you
though,
better have a story
the,
cooked.
the meat is great.
Okay.
What would you
don't
compare
it
you
to?
don't get a lot, obviously, because it's a chipmunk. But what you do get is really good.
What
I
would you
thoroughly
equate it
enjoyed
to? Squirrel.
It's everything you want squirrel to be. It's like if you cook squirrel like perfect. I don't think we've ever
Like veal
done it,
squirrel.
but like it's just so good. It's like really well cooked. You know, chicken when it's not moist, but it's also not dry, and as it comes apart, it just kind of fibers
Yeah.
a little,
Okay.
but it's not stringy. It was like that kind of texture. The Greek dressing was perfect. I didn't like bread it or anything. I just
Yeah.
cooked it, and oh my god, it was good. I lightly charred it on the outside.
Mm.
Oh, it was great.
I'm lightly nervous that you've described it this way to get us all excited,
Yeah.
and then you invite us over to try it,
I
and then it's
I
awful.
put out a trap yesterday and didn't catch one. I was going to try to bring one, but
Oh,
I
I
you
thought you were
bummed?
like, I caught 10.
Now I want one.
I know.
it was very
They're not
good.
hard to find.
Something makes me feel sad about eating one of those little guys, though.
My dad had one as a pet when he was young, and he often bit my aunt, and she called him a demon. She hates chipmunks to this day. She calls them little demons.
He had everything as a kid.
Yeah, he had snakes, monkeys, everything.
So we'll do
It's crossbreeding.
we'll do our chipmunk episode at my dad's house across the street and watch your dad from the window going.
Yeah, this is my babe. That's my baby.
It's little Joey.
So yeah, ate chipmunks, and I'm not ashamed. It was delicious. We've eaten crow. That's fine.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
Very good.
All right, the next story. Jeff, you gave me misinformation on my morning
I'm sorry.
on the call, and I spent my day trying to find information about how they were stocking Arctic char in the Great Lakes, and that's
They're
not the
not.
case.
Oh,
And
man.
I
don't
couldn't
think
find
they-
any.
I
I'm
don't
showing
think-
AJ pictures
I don't
today.
think they'd work here.
I know. I was like, I don't know how they're doing it, but Jeffrey seems sure.
I don't know where I got char from. I wonder if one of the articles I looked at said char.
Well, why don't you give the
accidentally.
real information?
Okay, so
now?
anyways, they have for the last several years been attempting to restock Arctic Grayling in
Wildly
the
different.
rivers,
Way different.
Way
the
different.
rivers,
Huge
and
different.
all around inland Michigan is where they're doing this. And as it turns out, Arctic Grayling were the predominant fish
Yep.
in inland Michigan before the 1900s.
Yeah, our trout streams were full of them.
They were the fish. There were stories that you could what fish was that? Where you were walking across the river at Ray's place and there was just fish everywhere.
No, those were carp.
It was like you could walk on them. But these are a delicious
Carp.
game fish.
That was carp, though.
Yeah, this is not carp or char.
Actually, it wasn't. You know what it was? It was red horse suckers. I'm sorry. And some people do eat them pickled. Moving on.
Ugh. So, anyways, they have Arctic Grayling were here. That's where Grayling, Michigan gets its name.
They're like
Right?
they're like a silvery looking fish.
They're
And grayling,
the most beautiful fish.
yeah,
White-
they've
like a
got
white
real
fish?
big fins on the back. Yeah, kind of like a whitefish.
AJ, imagine the fish from the kids' book, the rainbow fish, where it has those little holographic scales.
Yeah.
That's what the fish looks like.
Okay.
It's like a blue,
If it was a Pokemon,
iridescent purple. It's a beautiful fish. And then they have this cool dorsal fin that like is so big it folds over.
supposedly tastes really good too.
Yeah.
Supposed.
So these fish were everywhere in Michigan. From like they started like the big push for game and commercial fishing in Michigan started with Arctic Grayling,
Okay.
and they were catching trainfuls of them and shipping them to Detroit and Chicago, and that was like a big. That's how game and commercial stuff got started in Michigan.
No kidding.
So-
with Arctic Grayling.
Is it strictly a river fish, or could it survive in the Great Lakes? Or
I don't know that.
Oh, it's in everywhere up in Canada and stuff. So
Yeah.
in Alaska and stuff like that.
They're
So
in Alaska and Canada, and then
and they're in lakes and rivers there.
they were in.
Okay,
I think
Michigan.
it's a cold water thing.
okay, so
I mean Arctic, so it makes sense.
they
They
could
like the
survive in
cold
a
water.
place like the Great Lakes,
Yeah.
likely.
I don't know about the Great Lakes. I don't know if it's cold enough.
Well, I mean, they lived in the northern lower peninsula of Michigan, so you know.
That'd
They
be cool
get
to
to
see.
warm
Well, I
spots.
wonder how that would affect what we have now. Everyone's so like,
Well, they competed with brook trout, but then we brought in all the brown trout and rainbow trout, and then got rid of all of them. So
So they were really big in the late 1800s.
people fly fish for them.
And then, like a lot of other fish around here, they started logging, especially after the Great Fire in Chicago, and they were cutting down all these trees, just letting them go into the river, and then floating them down the river. And while they're floating down the river, they're just destroying habitat.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So this was like the 1880s, I think, And then as it gets into the early 1900s, between overfishing and then introducing the brown trout, which was eating all their eggs, just destroyed
See
the
ya.
population. And then
They
by 1930, they had listed them as critical. And then by 1936, which was the year my grandma was born, they couldn't find them anymore.
didn't ask.
Jeez.
So that's how I remembered it.
Yeah, just trying to help. Just trying to help.
So
everyone out with
anyways,
information.
so they have with the little band of Ottawa Indians and the Little River Band of Ottawa Indians and the Michigan Technical Institute and the DNR, they came together to figure out. So like these fish were predominant here; they were the fish, and so they're trying to figure out how we can get them back because they're great eating, they're great fishing, they're great for the environment. How can we get them back here? And they looked at Montana, which is the only other state in the continental U.S. that has Arctic
Careful.
grayling, not char, and they also didn't have very many and did a successful reintroduction and brought them back into their rivers there. They said, well, let's look and see what they did. They're trying to figure out because obviously the rivers are a little different. They're a little, the temperatures are a little different between here and Montana. Obviously the species are a little different between here and Montana. The brown trout is obviously a big problem. But they haven't reintroduced them yet, but they've done a lot of stuff towards building habitat that was destroyed with all the logging, and they're fixing that. They've brought 2 generations of fry from Montana to here that live at the Marquette fishery.
Okay.
So
nice.
there are grayling in Michigan. They're just
Coming
they're
to a
in-
river near
they're in
you.
a fishery.
Yeah.
And they haven't figured out, so they're spending all this time doing research. They're breeding them, trying to figure out what temperatures work best for them, whether they can live with brown trout under certain circumstances, and they found that they can. They just have to, very carefully monitor it and keep track of, population rates and whatever. But they are working towards reintroducing them, and they're hoping that in the next 10, 15 years, there will be a sustainable population that we can fish, which
So
I'm really looking forward to.
what would be the other than having the Arctic Grayling come back and something extra to fish for that tastes good?
Mhm.
Is there any advantage to the ecosystem in bringing that back? Because by now our ecosystems are adjusted to not having them.
Yeah. Well, it's more about restoring the
Original.
environment the way it was, because the logging and the overfishing is what hurt the population
Right.
and made it critical. And then because they were so low, we introduced the brown trout, and then that's what kind of like did it.
Finished them
replaced.
off.
They were already not doing well.
So it was
though.
they can take one of the punches, not all three.
Yeah.
How I see the issue though is, you see this with species all the time. Well, let's reintroduce a species. It was here, so they reintroduce it.
Yeah.
Well, look what it did to the ecosystem.
Yeah,
And then they're
always
surprised
shocked,
by
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's how it was, and then it changed because you made a change
Right.
that you weren't used to, and
Like
now
the
you're not.
wool-
And
like
now
the
you're,
wolves.
exactly, and now you're not happy.
Mm-hmm.
So
But
I'm
you'd
just.
be happy because they're a really pretty fish and I want to catch one.
But if them and brown trout can't live together, then that's where I see an issue, because you have a lot of people who come here for trout fishing.
Sure.
Like, that's set in their ways that you can come here for brown trout.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
almost have to switch the culture around to
That's
like
the
accept,
part I'm worried about.
Except is
Yeah.
is there gonna have to be 50% less brown trout in order to sustain another, like, because a river system can only support so many fish, right?
Mhm.
So if for this mile stretch of river it can support 100 pounds of fish, and right now 80 pounds of it are brown trout, 10% and 20% are rainbow, and that's like what we're used to, and that's what we like to catch, and that's what we do. Like, okay, well, we'll have to knock out like 50% of that in order to sustain the grayling.
Well, that's part of rebuilding the habitat too, is they'll be able to
Sustain
sustain
more.
more fish.
Right. So it's a twofold thing of like trying to help the habitat.
It will most likely actually benefit the trout on top of adding the grayling,
Why?
because you're improving the habitat and allowing them to reproduce more. You're allowing them to.
So the habitat is
Coexist.
as much of the
'Cause-
push as
yeah,
the,
because they're trying to find ways to get them to like situations in which they coexist, and they can. So they're just trying to best, and like I said, they haven't pulled the trigger yet because they're not sure. So they're still doing a lot of research. I think they've been looking like really in depth into it. This group of people for the last 5 or so years. They tried to do it in like the 80s, and it either didn't work or they didn't get enough funding or whatever the case.
I wonder why. Yeah.
And then now they've actually made progress. There's like 50 different groups involved at this point, so it sounds like hopefully they're going to make it happen.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited to catch one. It's one of those things like I don't know enough about, but like I think to Ryan's point, I think him and I are a little bit jaded with bringing back species because like oftentimes we're bringing back species for the sake of nostalgia. You couldn't explain to me why it would be a good idea to bring wolves back in certain areas, other than like people are like, would be nice to have wolves again. It's like, well, the wolves that live there are gone, and it's almost like a fake feeling. So like when you're telling me about these grayling, you're like, yeah, they're in holding ponds right now in an area. Like it's like they're bred and they're in those ponds, and I have like this feeling, while not necessarily true, because rainbow trout and brown trout have been here so long, you have this feeling like they belong and like you're catching a wild fish. Yeah, sure, you trace their ancestry back and it was the same situation then as this is, where they released all these brown trout. Now that's why they're reproducing. But it's like you have this feeling that's a wild fish. Whereas if I catch a grayling in 5 years, I'm going to feel like it just came out of a...
You caught a lab fish.
Yeah. And it's like, so there's that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's the right way to feel. I'm saying that's how it feels. And then number two, you look at things like for the nostalgia of like, well, we used to have wolves, so we should bring them back. It's like those wolves are gone. The wolves that were there are gone, for better or for worse. And you're bringing in new wolves, and right now, like for instance in Colorado, the elk populations are, there's more elk there than anywhere else, and now there won't be because you're bringing back wolves, which hurts the economy, which hurts the hunter success, which hurts getting new hunters involved because there's less success. It hurts hurts a lot of things. So it's like for the sake of doing things, it's not always the right move. So I'm not saying that's the case with this at all. I'm saying I think that's where Ryan's coming from because I have like those are like where my brain goes right away, But if I got more information, I might not feel that way.
I'm nervous that in the United States we're creating this system where it's like a fine line between rehabilitation and
Playing
a
God.
science project.
Right.
Yeah, science
Yeah.
project where it's like,
Mania.
well, are you just doing this just cause? Is it because you're getting paid to do something, so you're finding something to do? Or are you doing it because this is actually what's healthy for the ecosystem? And in many instances, it's not been healthier for the ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, the Great Lakes are nothing but a giant 8th grade field trip friggin'
There's just time capsules
Yeah.
line the bottom of the lakes.
I mean, it's a big aquarium. That's how we treat it.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I want funding so that we have sustainable fishery so we can catch fish.
Right.
I want hatcheries. I
Someone
want
at
those
least
things.
attempting to look at the habitat.
But it's like when
and
something new comes along, when we've
You
seen
don't
so many
know.
things go wrong, it's like, oh, hold on.
Yeah.
But,
maybe we don't need peacock bass in the canals. Maybe we don't need,
well, I mean, no, I'm just kidding.
Don't go there.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in to the Greenway Outdoors podcast. Hopefully these topics were interesting to you because they sure are interesting to us.
Definitely.
Check us out on Facebook, Instagram. Also check out our secondary Huntcast TV show on Carbon TV and YouTube. It's where we take you on some of our quick trips and experiences there. Check out our outdoor education series on YouTube. If you're looking for how-to videos for the outdoors or you're just always excited to see high-quality, good outdoor content and learn something new, check out that series there. And check us out on Sportsman Channel Saturdays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're not just a video podcast. We are also an actual TV show. We'd love to take you on our adventures there. Thanks so much for tuning in. See you next week, and stay green.